Good evening. Welcome to the second episode of Zurcast. I'm Daniel Mark Harrison. Tonight we're discussing mask wearing. As Europe opens up its borders to vaccinated passengers, and as certain states in the United States start to allow free travel, should you wear masks or not?
They've been squaring off for months.
When it comes to wearing a mask, the Prime Minister hasn't sounded particularly clear of late.
The week in limbo, waiting to see if the state adopts new guidelines after that sudden shift by the CDC that allows vaccinated people to ditch their mask.
Riot police in full gear, and ever more determined protesters.
So let's get the backstory. Backstory is, in 1989, when a group of students decided that they had enough of the People's Republic of China government. Enough of them. They went to Tiananmen Square and in a peaceful protest, they sat down. Days later, the People's Republic of China government sent tanks. And there is an iconic image of a young child, an 18-year-old, 19-year-old student standing in front of a tank with his arms outstretched, which moments later mowed him down. That's what the People's Republic of China did. They mowed down their people. So it's a typical PRC response to any sort of dissent. When in 2019, you had a whole lot of Hong Kong youths who were all upset because during the 1997 handover, when Britain handed Hong Kong back to China, there were basic gentlemen's agreements that were put in place. One of those gentlemen's agreements was that China would stay out of Hong Kong's affairs. It would be one country, two systems. And so fast forward until 2019, and suddenly mainland China's government said, now we have the right to put in a bill that said they had the right to essentially prosecute anyone in Hong Kong of a crime in the same way that they would prosecute a crime in mainland China. And a bunch of students in Hong Kong, no doubt in cooperation and aided and abetted by intelligence agencies in the United States and the United Kingdom. No doubt. There's no doubt about that. So I remember being in China in 2019, discussing it with Chinese people, saying that the CIA must be behind that. Everyone knew about it. Everyone knew about it. Anyway, these students started blocking airports and main transportation thoroughfares, such as highways, and essentially led to a complete shutdown of Hong Kong. I have a photo from the time when I was there, showing solidarity with the Hong Kong people, wearing a black mask. And that's what these students did, because that's what they did. They wore black masks. And so there were these images being broadcast all over the world, all over the world's media, of sort of 18 to 22-year-old Hong Kong students wearing black masks. And China was terrified. They were terrified that these images would become the same symbol, if you like, of Chinese dictatorship that the same age student in Tiananmen Square in 1989 began. And it set China back quite a few years in terms of economic growth. The reason for this is because economics is about free trade. Free means free. It means liberal. It means allowing trade to cross borders, and it means allowing free speech, and it means allowing the publication of free information. That's what trade relies on to be effective. And so If people saw China suddenly as a repressor of information, they would start to become less confident in trading with China. And so China was very, very worried about this and thought, how do we eradicate the image of so many young students in Hong Kong, protesting against our repression of the Hong Kong citizens' rights and free speech? Because it was quite an effective symbol, right? A black mask covering your mouth basically signaled to the world we are being repressed. It was an effective symbol. And so, when a virus called SARS-CoV-2 was identified in Wuhan, suddenly, instantaneously, you had pictures all over the world of people wearing masks. And it all became about mask wearing, right? It was almost instantaneous. And if you notice something peculiar, medical masks tend to be white in color. That's the logical one you wear. When you go, you're looking around pharmacy, do you have a mask? I remember when SARS-CoV-2 came out, I went down to the local pharmacy, do you have a mask? They handed me a white or a green one. Those medical masks. Nowhere does a pharmacy hand you a black mask. And yet, the leading politicians in the United States, United Kingdom and other countries were suddenly wearing black masks. Now, in the same way that China paid off the Saudis to bomb Israel, which they're doing at the moment, and they're doing even more of. What we spoke about last night, they are doing even more of. They are carpet bombing Israel. The Chinese are anti-Semitic to the core. They hate the Jewish people. So, they are flattening that country in the most horrific way possible because it's a last form of recourse. And we'll get to that in a bit. But basically what's happening is they went and tried to wipe out these images. Now, the best way to get images wiped out is to obliterate them with millions and billions of other images of the same thing, right? If you show a person wearing a mask repressed by free speech, and then for 18 months, the next 18 months you just show people wearing masks everywhere, especially those black ones, world leaders, famous people you recognize, you will forget about the teenagers in Hong Kong who were protesting against having their free speech taken away from them. And that's exactly what the mask wearing was intended to do, and was successful in doing, frankly, So that's the reason behind mask wearing. So mask wearing and vaccinations are somewhat two different things, somewhat tied into the same thing, because if you look at your vaccine box and you look where it's made, I pretty much guarantee you that you will see that it's made in the People's Republic of China. Yep, that's right. Okay, on to questions. Are we in World War III? Yes, we are in World War III. That's correct. It is World War III. Absolutely. They have grounded planes. I mean, why would you ground aviation travel? It's because you're afraid that a plane might shoot out of the sky. So absolutely, that's correct. It is World War III. Who's winning? That's a good question. The United States and the United Kingdom started to win again. There was a period where China gained control, but they're actually badly suffering, and that's what you're seeing with Israel. So basically, what's happening? Let me explain. So the carpet bombing of Israel is sort of China's last pithy stance. Yeah, it's a bit like what Japan did with Pearl Harbor. It's a it's a lost battle. That's why you're starting to see videos such as this don't get deleted from YouTube. Have you noticed that? Because the Chinese have run out of economic power. Basically, it costs a lot of money to buy up oil, to repress speech. It costs money. More money than the Chinese even had and banked on halving. That's what happened, and they're out of cash. So that's partly what you're seeing with the Bitcoin thing, with China threatening to destabilize and completely crush the price of Bitcoin. They literally are using cryptocurrencies by both sides, by both China and by the United States, were used as a financial weapon in this war. But the war itself will continue for quite some time. It's not going to end up. So don't start booking. Don't start thinking about flying to 15 different countries next year. You can go overseas somewhere else. So which cryptocurrency should I buy if that's the case? Okay, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm not a cryptocurrency price forecaster. Right? What I do is I run a team of people who develop blockchains. So a number of you are asking about Zur. I can see that, as you were last night and before. Okay, so what happened with Zurcoin is this. I have a team of developers, and we look at interesting technology, software technology. Zurcoin was one of them because it's cleaner, it's cheaper, and it's faster than Bitcoin, but it's exactly the same code. And we went, this might be interesting. Let's build some pretty wallets and for mobile and web, and let's build some other applications over time on top of it and see if people turn up, and you're turning up. So that's fantastic. That's all I do. In terms of what cryptocurrency you should buy, look, I know someone who's from zero. He has made over $100 million in cryptocurrencies. So let me tell you what he told me, and maybe that will help. I cannot say if this is a good strategy or not, other than to say that someone who has made over $100 million in cryptocurrencies suggested it to me, which doesn't sound bad. He said, Daniel, what I do is I mine either via software, POS, or via hardware, POW. I mine the most profitable coins I can, and then I sell those coins in the market for the cryptocurrencies I want. So ones with high returns, where he gets a lot of coins, he mines them and then he sells them, and he buys Bitcoin or Ethereum or Doge or wherever he's buying that week, right? I don't know what cryptocurrencies he's buying. I'm just saying whatever ones he wants, he uses that as a mechanism to buy them. So maybe that might be the easiest, the easiest way. Let's look at some more questions. That's a funny one. Do you think Kane Warwick of Synthetics will pay you $50 million bill? Good question. In fact, what I'll do is I'll bring up an email. We had an email I was CC'd into an email from someone last night who was writing to Kane Warwick saying, listen, I'm desperate for money. Can I this ZurD that I hold, because we did another cryptocurrency called Zurcast at one point that many people hold. It's not going up in value. What's going to happen to it and all this kind of stuff. And interesting, he wrote to Kane Warwick, who we billed. We sent him a bill because Synthetics was an intellectual property that was stolen off the synth chain. Doesn't it sound similar? Synthetic assets well, I'm not going to say stolen. Kane Warwick took it, and so I sent him a bill. And Kane Warwick then went and joked about it on his Twitter feed like a 12-year-old. And look, is he going to pay? Is he not going to pay? You got to ask him. All right. Good night. Thank you very much for joining. I'll see you tomorrow.